such compassion, such unlimited love for other people that he was willing to live with integrity, even if that integrity led him to death. He was willing to die so that others might have and understand life. For Jesus, taking up a cross meant not worrying about protecting himself, but instead doing what was right for others. And in Galatians, the Apostle Paul says that taking up one's cross means to bear one another's burdens. And in this way, he says, we will fulfill the law of Christ. If we are to be followers of the divine among us, we take up our cross and follow Christ. We bear one another's burdens. And how is it that we bear one another's burdens? There's some obvious examples of how to bear one another's burdens. It's like finding somebody with their car stuck in the sand down at the beach and help them getting it unstuck. That's bearing one another's burdens. It's finding somebody struggling to get their kid and their groceries out to the car from the grocery store and offering to carry something for them. Or on Sunday morning, finding someone struggling to get all the food for the coffee hour into the church and offering to carry some yourself. What is bearing one another's burdens? It's knowing that when one's co-worker is stressed at work, understanding that co-worker well enough to know how they like their coffee and picking some up on your way in the morning. That's a Seattle example. But other than naming a few of these very specific kinds of things that we can do, I like to find disciplines. I like to find exercises that I can do to teach myself, to train myself to be helpful for other people. One of my favorite disciplines for learning to perfect myself in love is learning to simply say yes. God is a God of yes. God is a permissive God that allows creation to work out its future in marvelous ways. I try to always say yes unless I have to say no. An example some of you have heard is about a church I was pastor of once. There was this crazy woman that hung around that church a lot, and she suggested that we ought to have little mailboxes for everybody in the church so that you could leave notes for them and stuff like that. And I like my parishioners. I don't want to be the one to say no. So I said, great idea. Let's bring it up at the council meeting tomorrow night. So tomorrow night we brought it up at the council meeting. And there was a Seattle district school teacher that's there that says, I know where there's a huge wall of card catalogs. Some of you are old enough to remember card catalogs at the library. Card catalog drawers that the district's going to get rid of. I'll bet I could get them for the church. And the next Sunday, we had this big bank of card catalog drawers all labeled as to which drawer belonged to which family. And it was wonderful because people could leave their name tags in their drawer. When we had announcements of meeting, we just put them in the appropriate people's drawers. When the United Methodist Women had secret sisters, they could leave their cards in the person's drawer. On Mother's Day and Easter, there were balloons and flowers pouring out of the drawers. It was a wonderful idea, so magnificent. I praise God for teaching me to say yes instead of no, because I thought it was a pretty dumb idea. I thought it was such a good idea, I ended up marrying that woman. Too frequently we have a knee-jerk response of no. Why do we do that? We do that because saying yes sometimes means it's going to be a little more work for us. Sometimes means we're going to risk something where we're going to fail. It sometimes means we're just really too busy to think it through, and it's easier to say no than to say anything else. But isn't saying yes simply bearing another person's burden? taking their idea, taking their dream, taking their aspiration, and helping to bring it to fruition? Isn't it simply bearing another's burdens? Isn't it simply the greatest gift there is? Demonstrating the love that lays down a little piece of our life for the sake of someone else. So saying yes is one of the spiritual disciplines I like to try and help perfect myself in love. Another discipline I like is giving only creative or constructive criticism. In your bulletin this morning, you have two inserts, one that I told Rita to put in, and the other one I put in because I changed my mind about what I wanted to talk about this morning. But one of them talks about constructive criticism, what it is and what it isn't. I suspect you know what constructive criticism isn't. Telling me what I did wrong yesterday afternoon is not constructive criticism. Though I confess, the tempter continues to get me to do that time and time and time again. Constructive criticism I forgot to tell the printer to do things the right way this morning, so I'm a little bit lost. Constructive criticism is not saying to your sister-in-law, oh, I need to put a little caveat in here. I need to say that the people and events in this sermon are fictitious, and any resemblance to any real person living with it is purely coincidental. Constructive criticism is not saying to your sister-in-law, I hate your brother, my husband, and the way he dresses in public. He's such a pig, he hasn't a clue what to wear. He'll never change. I just hate him. When he dresses like that, I just tell him I don't feel well and we aren't going to go out there. That is criticism. That is not constructive. Why isn't it constructive? It isn't constructive because constructive criticism is given to the person who has power to affect the change you want. And telling your sister-in-law what's wrong with your husband isn't going to get the change you want unless you want your sister-in-law running your husband's life. And most of us would not choose that, I think. What is constructive criticism? Constructive criticism is given to the person with the power to change the situation. Don't give it to a parent. Your kid's out of control. Your kid's eating too many cookies. Your kid's this or your kid's that. Don't give it to a sibling or an offspring or a coworker or a pastor or a parishioner or the checkout clerk at the grocery store or the hairdresser or your handball partner. Give it to the person who is doing the thing that you find offensive. Don't give it when the time is past. None of us can change history, and telling me what I did wrong yesterday just perpetuates my sense of failure, which I am probably already well too aware of. Constructive criticism isn't saying, I hate the way your brother dresses. That criticism given to a sister-in-law is being delivered to the wrong address. Give it to your husband. She's listening. I can't believe it. To give criticism to the person who has the power to affect the change you want is to invest your life in creating a more perfect world. It's to take up a cross. It's to bear a burden for another. Constructive criticism is given in a way that respects the offender. Did you notice in that example of what it isn't? The wife ends up calling her husband a pig. There's no respect in that. There's no love in that. That reduces a beloved child of God to something that is less than human. And if this person made in the image and God of the eternal is a pig, then must we be saying that God is a pig also?
Amen.
We do not dehumanize another because we happen to be offended by them. Constructive criticism is given with respect. It's a way of investing in the life of the other person, as well as investing in improving your own situation in life. Constructive criticism is specific enough that the recipient understands the problem. I can't stand the way you dress isn't very helpful. Isn't very helpful. Saying he hasn't got a clue what to wear isn't very helpful. Saying, I don't like you wearing the jeans with dirt on the knees because you've just been working in the garden and we're planning on going out to dinner and a show. That's criticism. That's constructive. That makes it specific enough that I know maybe I should brush the dirt off the knees of my jeans. Or better yet, there are some here that think I ought to change my slat into slat. It tells what is offensive and when it's offensive. And it could go a step further and tell why it's offensive. People will look at us and think less of us if we don't dress appropriately for the occasion. Investing in problem solving, eliminating the pain in your world, is taking up your cross. It is bearing the burdens of others. It is making our world a better place. Constructive criticism most frequently carries with it a suggestion as to how the problem can be solved. For instance, a wife might say to somebody, would you change into a nice clean shirt and some slacks before we go out tonight? I might not have thought of that otherwise. Investing in innovation, investing in finding solutions is investing in life. It's investing in relationship. It's investing in love, not in division. Constructive criticism is given in a spirit of love. Instead of saying, I hate it when you go out with me looking like a slob, you can say something like, you know, you look really sharp when you get dressed up. Makes me feel pretty good. Investment in affirmation is investing in raising the other person up, exalting who they are, recognizing who they are, and affirming that. And constructive criticism is given by a person willing to help implement the solution. Helping to implement the solution. I'd really prefer it if you changed clothes before we went out tonight. Would you like me to pick something out for you? Or, you know that blue jacket you sometimes wear? You look good in that. It's taking up your cross. It's taking on the burden of another. It's helping to carry what may weigh them down and diminish them in their life if you don't help. That's bearing another's burden. That's growing closer. And in relationships, it's always better to grow closer and closer and not drift further and further apart. Amen. Welcome again, my friends, to Lent, that season in which we look closely at ourselves so that we can be transformed, changing for the better, made somehow more perfect. Lent is a spiritual journey, a sojourn through the wilderness, and today we remember how Jesus on his spiritual journey, as he sojourned through this wilderness we call life, told his followers to take up their cross and follow in his footsteps. I ask you, my friends, during this Lenten season, take on the disciplines of saying yes. take on the exercises of being creative in your criticism. And I promise you that as you invest in life-solving problems, you will see, and if you invest in life, solving the problems you see, that step by step, you will come closer to God's holy city of peace. Amen. The closer we draw to one another, the closer we come to God. The closer we come to God, the closer we come to one another.